There are many factors that can contribute to player engagement in games. You have game mechanics, you have social elements, story and narrative, rewards, customization, and many others. And we think that blockchain is added new layers in order to contribute to player engagement in games. And we're going to talk about it alongside our members of the BGA and professionals involved in blockchain gaming. I am Flav from the Blockchain Game Alliance, and we are an organization committed to promoting blockchain within the gaming industry. And without any further ado, I would like to welcome our speakers of today, starting with you, Sally. I love to have you here again on the show. And just as a
Thank you.
reminder, could you introduce yourself and Icarius as well, please?
Thank you, Flap. Thank you, BGA, for having me on behalf of Ecolius Technology here today. And hello, everyone. I am Sally, the head of global accounts from Ecolius Technology, who is the leading blockchain development house in Vietnam and in Southeast Asia. I work very closely with clients from around the world, help them build different DApp, Web3 platforms, and especially Web3 games.
Awesome. Good to have you here. Patrick, we
Thank you.
also had you during, I think it was a new members presentation. So pleasure to have you today to tackle a specific topic we have. But again, could you introduce yourself and Moonlit Games, please?
Definitely. Thanks for having me. I'm Patrick. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Moonlit Games, a new mobile-first cross-platform development studio in Berlin. It's quite a mouthful. My previous experience has been in free-to-play gaming, specifically mobile, really in product management at a bunch of really cool companies. So really trying to take this experience, transition from Web 2 into Web 3, which have been somewhat a fan of for 4 or 5 years deeply, and apply that to our first title, Rogue Nation, which is a roguelike ARPG leveraging blockchain, and due out probably in about 8 weeks with a first playable. So be on the lookout.
Oh, we will. Oh, I will personally for sure. So yeah, pleasure to have here today. And Alex is going to be very happy to have you today as well because you have a specific angle with your with the sound picker. It's going to be very interesting to have your opinion about player engagement. So could you talk about sound picker and what you're doing there?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. It's actually great to be able to connect with new people from the BGA as well. So quite excited for today's talk. And well, the basics, my name is Alex Lopez, and I'm one of the founders at Soundpicker. And essentially with a growing number of new games coming up in Web3 and them needing not just music, but also new monetization avenues, we exist essentially to be able to connect music with Web3 games so that they can use the best music while they also tap into one of the largest networks of labels and music artists. So essentially what this means is that Web3 games can use music with the right permissions, which is paramount, while they also can save money and gain a new growth and engagement avenue. So yeah, excited to keep talking about this today.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Alex. So going through the question, the first question, Sally, will be for you. So as you said, you at Icarius, you help clients globally quickly deploy emerging technologies such as blockchain and going from DeFi trading and games, you actually help building marketplaces for Age of Gods. You actually developed a Web3 games building Unicorn. So based on your experience, could you describe your understanding of player engagement in the context of Web3 games?
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So this is actually a very general question. So as a Web3 dev house, we have an in-house game team, and also a blockchain team that have been working very closely with our clients to help deliver different parts of the game. So sometimes, the full game, but sometimes different part of the games, like whether game arts or game design, sometimes in-game economy design, game development, or simply blockchain integration into the game, which with NFTs and tokens. I understand that how to maximize player engagement in the game is the ultimate goal. I think it is a major aspect of a successful game that helps to create and maintain a big, healthy, and loyal community. Personally, I don't think there is a huge difference in player engagement between Web3 games or traditional games, because at the end of the day, everyone plays game for fun, right? So keeping players excited and continue investing in playing the game by providing different layers of challenges and awards, an interesting storyline, um, nice character traits, or sometimes, most of the time, beautiful and outstanding game arts. And now with Alex, we can have some interesting story about music as well. Uh, so what is appealing from the Web3 game, from my own experience working with different game projects, is that the experience that Web3 game can bring with a very cool technology, which is very transparent, very convenient, and fast and trustworthy. Also, the earning aspect and the decision-making power that Web3 games can bring to game players are also great motivation for them to join and engage with the game, which I think we'll have more things to discuss later on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly what you said. It's bringing transparency and trustworthy experience within a game, and the ability for game developers to actually give power to the gamers in terms of decision making. It's pretty interesting to see in Web3 games. So it makes a lot of sense. And when we try to be connected with what you're sharing, Patrick, on your side with the Rogue Nation game, what I understood is these mechanics, which is obtain characters and gear, you improve and customize your character, you battle through the different dungeons that you have, and you earn through achievements, through resources, and through rewards. So based on that, how blockchain, do you feel like you will share the same feeling that Sally has? How blockchain is inspiring your decision in terms of game mechanics and gameplay?
To a degree, we share similar thoughts, but I believe there are certain systems that we just couldn't make without blockchain. Of course, that's a bit of like a hyperbolic statement, like blockchain solves everything. It doesn't. It could be done before, but rather than go hire a very large team of back-end engineers, here is a technology that we can integrate fairly easily and have a lot more emergent feature set within the game. And so when you think of just, progressionary loops that you would have in the game, many of them are linear, right? Everyone has extremely similar experiences, and that's kind of needed and desired by players, where we want to put something on top of that that is more emergent. And so when you were talking about deeds and achievements, we have a DNA system in our game, which is deeds and achievements. This is something where it is a little more emergent, and depending on every player's interaction of what character, what weapon, what dungeon, what event, all of these start to culminate in these specific items, lived experience. And so even if you have technically the same exact item, over days, months, years, it totally changes the parameters of what these items are. So just think of it as a lived experience of that item through your use or lending it in someone else's use. And an example that I use is maybe overuse is Excalibur the sword. very nice sword, great materials, but it's King Arthur's sword. He went and used it in battles. Knights of the Round Table used it. Merlin's doing magic. Sword in the Stone, Lady of the Lake, right? There's many stories about this. But Excalibur becomes Excalibur through all of these experiences. It didn't come from the blacksmith. Whoa, Excalibur is here. It was just a very nice sword for the king. So just using that as a loose example, you can actually apply this to many characters, items, and weapons inside of a game. And so we're looking at this, and this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg on how to use blockchain for more emergent feature sets and more emergent systems. You can even think of things like narrative or user-generated content. Yeah. It's really allows a lot. And of course, with all this greater autonomy and peer-to-peer interactions, even the interactions between individuals becomes more emergent as they try and figure out different ways to engage with these features and engage with themselves that isn't forced like Web 2, isn't just, hey, I'm doing this because there's a value proposition here, and if I don't interact with my clan, I don't get this chest. It's more or less trying to explore the systems and see what comes of it.
Interesting. So we've heard a little bit about what Sally said around decision making, and it's enhancing the capability of players to put values inside their own assets, game asset they actually own, and based on what they will do with those assets in terms of the performance of the game, and the try of kind of activities they will do with other gamers as well, the social aspect of what they will be able to experience within the game, kind of build their reputation with those assets. So it's pretty interesting to see how things is happening on that side as well, and on your side as well, Alex, to talk about more about music, because it's so interesting to talk about music and gaming, especially with Web3. You have been involved in the music industry since a long time. You saw how difficult it is to rely on music data to help different actors involved in the music industry, and blockchain helps you with Soundpicker to innovate in terms of using this music data for royalty distribution. How do you make the connection with games, between games and music, and how are you aiming to help them?
It is a brilliant question, and there's a couple of things. So actually, I wanted to follow up on something that Patrick said before I forget, which is there are other elements as well for games that I think that they're the basics that I think that many other industries have been getting wrong. And I think that just by the inclusion of Web3, everybody's kind of going into it, which is as simple as just, building products or services based on the community, and then allowing those players and those users essentially to be able to generate, essentially monetize their own assets, which we all know how great it is from the gaming side, but coming from a industry, I've worked in the music industry for the past 10 years. It's been my entire career, and there's multiple studies and articles talking about what can music learn from games, and I think there's been many years of our industry trying to figure out what games are doing well for them to do be so great. And I think that just making sure that you're doing something that's for those users and those players, I think is what's really exciting about the inclusion of Web3 in anything really, not just in games, but of course, every industry is going to benefit from stuff like this. Now, when it comes to, essentially the role of music, right? And then how that can be used for that engagement as well. Was that your question? Sorry, Flav, was just started
exactly
answering.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things, and of course I'm going to be bringing this home a bit, right? I'm just going to be talking from the music perspective, and the reason being is of course my experience, and something that we've seen is the fact that game developers have a huge opportunity here to benefit from a huge network of music artists that have the audience, they're called the fans, and be able to onboard them as new artists, and then use that influence already to keep them within the game. And there's everything from the simplest one could be a in-game performance, but it doesn't mean that all games or environments are ready for anything like that. There's stuff that we essentially are working on a couple of things like that. That goes anything from having in-game challenges that gives you a free music NFT, all the way to having the exclusivity for an audio. Let's say, for example, you've got your favorite artist has a new song that comes out this Friday, but then on Patrick, what's your game?
Rogue Nation.
Rogue Nation. So let's say, my favorite artist, and I'm just going to say Beyonce just won the Grammy, right? So Beyonce's got the new track coming out on Friday, but, we've got the audio only available on Rogue Nation for their players. And so essentially utilizing that to bring them on board. You've got a week where the song is only available there. And so it's a way of onboarding new players and then ensuring that they're staying there because they know that stuff like this is happening.
Announced here, Alex is partnering Rogue Nation and Beyonce. Thank you.
Well, maybe soon actually, but hopefully soon. We should talk after this.
Definitely.
But actually, it's exactly what you said, Alex. I kind of see a lot of activities within the gaming industry alongside with the music industry. A lot of games. We can cite the most famous one, like Fortnite with Ariana Grande, Travis Scott experience, as you mentioned, live experience, when the idea of the game is to attract new players and make sure they will stay within the game by collecting new in-game assets, not no ownership of those assets for sure. But the idea is obviously to make a great experience and you live that experience, so you want to stay in the game. So in terms of acquisition and retention, that's one of the strategy games have with the music industry. How do you see this trend going with the use of Web3? Should Web3 change on that relationship between games and music we have right now?
The relationship still in the process of development. Like I mentioned earlier, music is an industry that tends to take a long time to adapt to new emerging technologies. But at the same time, the value that Web3 actually brings to the table is that transparency and the data transparency that is lacking in music. Not just for the musicians themselves and the labels, but also for the games. Because, there's a lot of mistrust. And I think that we do have an opportunity now to marry these two industries in a way that is based on that transparency. And so that means that, if you've got 100 players that are listening to the song on Rogue Nation, that is uncorrupted, that information is live on chain, and that both parties can actually ensure that is what's happening. And so the one party cannot say, well, you're lying to me, I need to charge you for 200. The other says, no, it's 50. You know what I'm saying? It kind of removes all excuses for conflict and actually just improves that relationship moving forward. There's also another element that I wanted to mention. You spoke about Fortnite. And it is the fact that not all games built in Web3 are those huge environments with avatars that you're, exploring and building worlds. And, there's a lot of them that are mobile, or that they are just, story-based, that there's not essentially like, let's say Fortnite. And so I think that in this case, the record industry has neglected a lot of these games, even though there's huge opportunity there to connect with them and be able to onboard new players, onboard new listeners. It's like the win-win opportunity is incredible. And there's no need to have anything that's a huge environment with multiple avatars and you can build your own buildings and your own space to bring people in for a performance. There's a huge opportunity here to actually fully connect those two industries in a way that, again, is proper connection, that is transparent, and that can essentially build trust long term.
Yeah, thanks, Alec, for that. Sally, coming back to blockchain's principles, which are security, which are decentralization, how are these impacting player engagement and retention. So you talk about the fact that obviously you need to focus on the gameplay and the fun aspect of the game, and we talk about that a lot, especially around that time after what happened with play to earn. But in terms of how to improve the retention of players within the game with Web3 / decentralization and security, do you think how do you tackle that challenge with your customers who actually would like to maximize the retention of players within the game?
Yeah, thank you. So as you know, Vietnam is the second largest game market in Southeast Asia. And with the hit of Web3, we are one of the fastest country that adopt the technology. Especially gaming is a field that shows it a lot. Apart from the gameplay factor, in my opinion, because Web3 is at the end of the day is a game. However, the Web3 factors have actually boosted, players' engagement with the game by providing different and sometimes many real life earning opportunities with in-game assets, like NFTs and tokens. Of course, with DAOs, you can see that users or players have more opportunities to be the decision maker in how the game will be shaped in the future. Okay, they have more power to shape the future version of the game. And with Web3, there is a fairer trading environment for players to not only purchase the in-game assets from the game administrator, but also put the assets for sales by themselves. So I think those are the things that Web3 can bring to have engaged players better into the games.
What about you, Patrick? You're developing the game. Do you see differently, like you have a lot of different new stats, new KPIs with what we have in terms of NFTs, trying to track everything that will happen in terms of liquidity within the game? Do you feel that it is challenging your ability uh, to track everything around retention for your games coming in a few weeks, or you actually just focus on what you know, which is building a good game?
Well, there's a couple different angles there, because the way in which we're approaching development is fast iteration and even quicker validation.
Hmm.
So this is why we're kind of going in almost a milestone esque manner of first playable, pre-alpha, alpha, closed beta, open beta. So there's a lot of different milestones we want to hit. And so we start with the most fundamental of KPIs for a game, which is engagement, right? So before we even look at 7-day, 10-day, 30-day retention, anything like this, we just need to see what kind of player engagement we get, which is essentially a proxy of how fun is it? did someone play 2 minutes and left, and that's what everyone does? Or, how many games did they play in a row? How many sessions? These types of things.
Yeah.
So more to the overall impact. Theoretically, it should help, but it becomes a value play between products. So what we have right now in mobile Web 2 or mobile free to play is essentially heavy reliance on sunk cost fallacy, right? You want people to get deep enough to where they have a psychologically hard time of letting go. And the reason why is because they can't get rid of these items. I've accrued $10, $20, $1,000 worth of stuff in this game. I can't get rid of it and take that money or resources or whatever into another game that I find more fun. And so now opening that up to players, this is why I say it should theoretically help. If you're a good game, yes. So there's going to be a lot more emphasis on finding the fun. And I think this is something that's been troubling the early stages of Web3 games, because it was more just proving the use case that games and blockchain can come together. And so it will certainly become a what have you done for me lately, making sure live ops, engagement features are there. And, once you extend this power to the players, this is something that they will expect. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so bullish on Web3 games is all things equal, right? The same exact game, except one is capable of all the things that we're talking about that blockchain gives. I think the value proposition is clear, especially when a player doesn't even realize that they are playing a Web3 game until the value proposition of, hey, go sign up for a wallet, and however that experience is, it should be very easy. That value proposition of going through that hassle, no matter how small or big, will make sense.
Yeah, talking with a lot of companies, blockchain and gaming companies, they are seeing 2023. They're hoping that 2023 will be the year that we will succeed in talking about games without mentioning blockchain within it, which will be a challenge for sure. Because when you're talking about that, you're talking about how easy to onboard players within your game. And I guess it's impacting your player engagement as well. I think, Sally, that's Patrick. I'm sure you have something to say around that
For
as
sure.
well. Yeah.
I mean, one example I would just point at, and I think it thus far is the shining example is Reddit, right? They didn't tell anyone NFTs. They didn't say blockchain.
Yeah.
They don't even call their wallet a wallet. It's a vault. It's like already you think of vault, it's like a safe place. It's where I keep my most prized possessions. So the way they approached it, I think like this is already like a first major step. And I think this is something that we just need to kind of take and run with and create an experience for that top of the funnel onboarding for players.
What do you think, Sally? Do you share the same feeling, the ability of you building for your customers game solutions when you don't have to speak about blockchain, but the technology is here?
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with Patrick with what he just mentioned here. So yeah, just basically, as a Web3 game developers, there are a lot of things that we have to tackle actually along the development process. But I believe that I can, share with you later on.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please do so now if you want to.
Oh, yeah, because, the question of, how much of decentralized you want the game to be. Is the question that every game has, because as much as you want it to be decentralized, the question of how it would affect the game performance and what kind of security level you can ensure. So from our own aspect, as a developer, that's something that we really have to figure out all the time. And during the game designing process, for example, how to, figure out the most sustainable model that could, engage players, ensure that they have the power, ensure that they have the freedom to express themselves and to earn and to play the game. So there are a lot of factors that are going with that needs a lot of research, that need a lot of understanding about the user's journey, the player's journey, and etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from the requests you have with your customers, what level of decentralization they want for now? Is it just focusing on the game and see what we could do with decentralization along the way, or they have a specific ideas of what they want in terms of how far they want to go in terms of decentralization, security, and everything?
I think it's 50-50. It depends a lot on what type of game it is. Sometimes game developers want to have a very, very much decentralized game, but sometimes there's a lot of obstacles that go with it. So we have to compromise actually. So I'm going to say 50-50.
Okay. Perfect. Alex, coming back to you, when we talk about music, when I talk about music, obviously it lead us to try to have an impact in terms of within the game, and try to have an impact with in terms of uh, social impact. Obviously, music has a large social impact in your life, but also within the game as well. Um, and it's also try to rely on the story and the narrative of the game. So for me, that's the way I try to explain how music could enhance a game in terms of retention of players within the game. But do you have a specific idea how sound picker and the quality of the services that you will provide for games will enhance their ability to provide a meaningful experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a couple of things there. So, the beauty of games is, and, I'm going to give flowers to the BGA for that report, because one of the key elements that was spoken about was ownership, how asset ownership was so important. And for music, it's a bit more complicated. Reason being, music IP is very complicated, and there's different people that own different rights, and getting consensus from everybody to be able to give ownership to users and players is very hard, really, really hard. However, there is that opportunity. So, like I mentioned earlier, with some of those challenges in-game contests and in-game experiences that include music and music artists, they are a great way to incentivize that engagement and that new user acquisition. And I think that something that's so something that's really, really interesting is that some of the best games, they always pride themselves for being those the ones that discover music, the ones that bring music out. You've got the FIFAs, you've got the GTAs with the radios, you've got all of these games that obviously they've got huge budgets to be able to pay huge license fees to be able to actually be that, right? Be the entity in games that discovers new music. And so now there's that opportunity for those games that are not the level of FIFA or the level of Madden, or do you know what I'm saying? Like all of these huge sport games, or League of Legends as well, having great music. What you find yourself is the fact that you can actually use not just the brand from the artist, but again, those really interesting techniques. So if, I'll make sure that my song is only available on your game for the next 48 hours. And in the next, 6 months, I will do like a exclusive NFT drop only for the users in that game. And those NFTs are only available if you complete X, Y, and Z contest or mission before you can actually achieve them. So I think that the key goal there, and the best way to be able to grow that engagement through the entertainment industry, in particular with music, is making sure that there's a collaboration and that things are working for both sides of the picture. But the most important one is the fact that there's that opportunity now to not just leave that music role to the big games, but instead actually be able to tap into that huge network that already exists in music with those startups that are coming up now in Web3.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Makes a lot of sense. I think the last topic we could tackle would be community. Obviously, a big aspect of players' engagements. Patrick, you're actually building your community for the game who's coming this year. How are you tackling these? Do you think like you are tackling these differently with Web3? As compared with another, let's say, Web2 games in terms of building a community behind your game?
Absolutely. And I would say this is one of the things that immediately Web2 companies, games, people, like anyone in the space of Web2 can look at Web3 and say, oh, this is something that we missed and we should look at right now. Because building out a community, as I was saying before, our approach to even game development is about fast iteration and validation. And for validation, you want your end user to be giving you that feedback. And rather than going and, looking at some point after putting in a lot of work for end users on the App Store, Google Play, you can start to really, from the ground up, build what that community is and start getting some of that feedback even earlier than play tests. You can really just start to, it's as easy as a poll in Discord. Now, of course, the community building aspect, this is kind of Wild West right now. I don't think there's like one model in which anyone can follow, and that's what you do. For us, we've been kind of the mindset slow and steady, right? Because if all of a sudden we announce our Genesis mint and it's all about the NFT, we're going to pull in a certain crowd, right?
Yeah.
Versus if we were talking about, hey, we're going to do a token generation event, you're going to pull a very specific crowd. And for us, everything that we're doing, even the integration of blockchain, is all about gameplay. We're a video game company, right? This is fundamentally the entertainment and the product that we're delivering. And so these are the early people that we want. Of course, we want Web3 and the degens of the world to be in the community, because we do need that feedback. Same thing with, I think, for some reason there's like a really anti-speculator mentality. You actually need speculators for a secondary market to stabilize. So there's different aspects of a community that you do want, and you want a more broad view. But again, it comes back to us. Like we need gamers. We can go with 100% gamers right now, but everyone is welcome. And so we're trying to build that out slowly, more organically. And I think a lot of people can go a long ways by just getting yourselves out there, just displaying very early stuff that you're creating, even just communicating the vision where you want it to go. So I would really, anyone out there, start building a community ASAP. The value is there. Like the risk reward is just massively in your favor, and the cost benefit just makes way too much sense.
Awesome. I think it should. We could take one video, 1 hour video, to talk about how we could build a community in games. For sure, it's such an interesting subject, and maybe also the challenges of building a community. As you said, I feel like in terms of infrastructure, it's pretty hard for a game to know exactly what to do, what kind of activity you could leverage to develop the game beyond the aspect of just having a Discord channel. But it's pretty interesting subjects. And to kind of as a last question for you, Sally, what you're working with a lot of actors in the space, blockchain wise, let's say gaming. What excites you the most for this 2023 year? For what will happen in terms of blockchain gaming or blockchain? You can choose very broadly your kind of topic you like the most.
I have been, through thick and thin with a lot of clients. We've been in the industry for 4 years, but we have been delivering almost 200 projects. So, I have witnessed all the pains, and I've been through with a lot of clients through thick and thin. So what really has been, the greatest motivation for builders, for developers like us, is that, through all the difficult time, we still see people build and keep building. Recently, we are working on several game projects, I can tell you. Either, some very easy, hyper casual game platform with token integration into reward system, or other type of game. But I can see what excites me the most is that the future of game is so bright. And Web3 has all the potentials it needs to outstand, attracts more people, more and more people, and be the future of gaming industry. Yeah.
I agree. And actually, Alex, you mentioned that we actually, yes, release a report around that, asking questions to the members to give an overview about what they think about the
Yeah.
industry, the ecosystem. And I was pretty amazed by the sentiment that we got from that report. Like just the number of 89% of respondents said they will still work in blockchain gaming 1 year from now, despite
Yeah.
the condition of the market. In terms of crypto, let's say, it's pretty phenomenal. So
Yeah.
it's
And also one thing I also feel, and I am witnessing for now, is that there certainly is a trend that new game projects can learn from the traditional games best practices. And sometimes it's also an interesting idea to somehow transitioning or converting traditional games but adding Web3 over the top of it. Of course, it's not an easy job, and there would be a lot of customization and things, but it's also something interesting that we can learn from the best traditional games best practices and apply it into future Web3 games.
It's a good point, actually, because one
Yeah.
of the purpose of the BGA is obviously to create a conversation. It's not only us trying to educate the gaming industry about blockchain itself, but have a bi-directional conversation with the gaming industry who knows how to develop a game. So with the example we have with you, Patrick, developing games for a long time as well. So yes, you're totally right. So thank you very much for every one of you to participate in that conversation. It was very interesting to have your opinion, vision around everything we could say in terms of players' engagement within games. And I hope to see you very soon for our next panel / next demo day. I'm sure we're gonna love playing the game, Patrick. And see you very soon. Bye bye, guys. Have a good day.
Awesome. Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye, guys.